We're going to go over 5 tips for teaching fractions. Tip number 1, use a variety of visual representations to help students understand that fractions are actually numbers and what they mean. So an example of this is, what is 3/4 and what does it look like? So here we have a number line and we drew from 0 to 1, and then here's 1/4, 2/4, and 3/4. So 3/4 is this part of the number line. The Common Core standard that this applies to is, understand a fraction as a number on the number line. Represent fractions on a number line diagram. Tip number 2 is practice creating equivalent fractions with the students using visuals or multiplication to help students add and subtract fractions with unlike denominators. So an example is 2/4 plus 1/3. So here we have our 2/4 plus our 1/3. And we know that 3/12 is equivalent to 1/4. So 6/12 is equivalent to our 2/4 plus 4/12 is equivalent to our 1/3. And if we put all of our 12s together, we get 10/12. The Common Core standard that this applies to is add and subtract with unlike denominators, including mixed numbers, by replacing the given fraction with an equivalent fraction in such a way to produce an equivalent sum or difference. The third tip is use benchmarking to help students compare or analyze what particular fractions mean. Use numbers such as 0, half, and 1 as your benchmarkers. So an example is comparing 1/4 and 7/8. We know that 1/4 is less than 1/2 and 7/8 is greater than 1/2. So 7/8 must be greater than 1/4. The Common Core standard that this applies to is use benchmark fractions and number sense of fractions to estimate mentally. The fourth tip is show students that fractions are really like a division problem. The numerator is being divided by the denominator. This can help greatly when it comes to simplifying improper fractions. An example is 15/3. This is also like saying 15 divided by 3, which equals 5. So 15/3 equals 5. The Common Core standard that this applies to is apply and extend previous understandings of division to divide unit fractions by whole numbers and whole numbers by unit fractions. The fifth tip is use real-world problems to help students understand that learning about fractions will benefit them in everyday life. An example is, I had 3 equal fish tanks that I filled 3/4 of the way full. How many fish tanks could I fill with this amount of water? So in this problem, the students are taking 3 times 3/4 to get 2 1/4, meaning that they could fill 2 full fish tanks and the third fish tank 1/4 of the way full. The Common Core standard that this applies to is solve real-world problems involving multiplication of fractions and mixed numbers.